yesterday, 30th August, the New Patriotic Party sent a press statement, just a short, I'm going to read it. It says, National Council of NPP to vote on Saturday to break the tie in the Special Electoral College elections. Now, the story says the National Council of the NPP shall on Saturday, 2nd September, constitute an electoral college to vote in a special election to break the tie between the fifth place candidates in the just ended special delegates or special electoral college election held on August 26th. In the presence of Honorable Engineer Francis Adenimu and Honorable Boakye Agyarko. This decision was taken by the party at a National Council meeting held on Wednesday, 30th August, in pursuance of the provisions of Article 10, 3, 1, and 18 of the NPP Constitution, having regard to the supreme interest and well-being of the party. The special election shall be conducted by the Electoral Commission of Ghana under the supervision of the Presidential Elections Committee at the party headquarters, Asylum Down in Accra. By this decision, National Council, which is the second highest decision-making body of the party, has varied Regulation 25 of the revised guidelines published by the Presidential Elections Committee on the conduct of the Special Electoral College election in respect of the procedure for breaking a tie for the fifth-placed candidates. The National Council also overruled Regulation 27 of the published guidelines, which barred government appointees and party executives and delegates from acting as polling agents for any aspiring presidential candidate. Consequently, a candidate is entitled to appoint any member of the party to serve as his polling agent in the ensuing elections. Notice is accordingly served to all stakeholders and to the general public. Signed, General Secretary Justin Kodua Frimpong. Okay, so that statement came late last night. Early this morning, we saw a letter written by the man, one of the two men who are eligible for that runoff, Boakye Agyarko. It's just 2 pages. Maybe I can read it. A couple of things to notice. It's on his own letterhead from his office, P.O. Box 3, Udumasi Krobo. That says a lot about how embedded he is in that community. Yeah. And it's a letter written to the chairman of the Presidential Elections Committee, Right Honorable Professor Aaron Mike Okwe. I think he left out the Reverend. Yep. He's Right Honorable Reverend Professor. Mm-hmm. Great. Dear sir, I write to the Presidential Elections Committee with reference to the press engagement by the General Secretary of the party, NPP, on Wednesday, 30th August, after the National Council meeting on the resolution that the National Council members will vote to break the tie of the NPP's special presidential election. I refer to the NPP Constitution, Article 13, Clause 9. Quote, where there are more than 5 contestants for nomination as the party's presidential candidate, a special electoral college shall cast their vote by secret ballot for the first 5 contestants to be shortlisted. The special electoral college, emphasis his, shall comprise the following delegates. I, the National Council, I, the National Executive Committee, I, the Regional Executive Committees, IV, all members of the National Council of Elders, V, all party members of Parliament, VI, 3 reps of each of the special organs of the party, 7 past national officers, 8, 3 reps each from every external branch, 9 ex-founding members joined the registration of the party at the EC, and 10 all card-carrying party ministers. I also make reference to the approved guidelines for the Special Electoral College issued by the Presidential Elections Committee. He goes to 25 in the event of 2, 3, or 4 contestants sharing the total votes with the remaining contestant but not obtaining any votes. There will be a runoff for those who obtain 0 votes to add up to the number to make up to the 5. In the event of a tie between 2 or more candidates for the 5th position, a runoff election will be conducted for those who will tie on Saturday, 2nd September. These and only these are what our Constitution and published guidelines mandate as lawful and constitutional. The position of the runoff schedule for Saturday, 2 September 2023 was reaffirmed by the chairman of the Electoral Elections Committee during your address to the party after the first round of the special elections, which you stated that candidates who voted in the first round will be the ones to vote in the second round. The Constitutional Special Electoral College, with the mandate to shortlist the list of aspirants, is and can be none other than the full complement listed under Article 13, Clause 9. It is not within the province or power of anybody to truncate this list and substitute it with anything else. Therefore, it is unconstitutional that a subsection about 135 National Council members of the Special Electoral College should assume the function on behalf of the 955 delegates who voted in the first round. It is totally unacceptable to me that such an unconstitutional act can be perpetrated on the altar of expediency. Am I to surmise that the party did not know the cost implications? Is it unconscionable? It is rather unconscionable that the rules of the game will be changed midstream. Rules and regulations that are flip-flopped in such a manner is only detrimental to fair play and justice. It is a clear violation of the party's constitution and the guidelines for the Special Electoral College. It is an unconstitutional act which I cannot allow myself to be associated with. I refuse to be a part of such an act that seeks to unjustly truncate a previously agreed upon process and cannot be part of what is about to be done on Saturday, September 2, 2023. I cannot, with a clear conscience, make an impermissible concession to such an errant decision. I therefore respectfully serve this notice to refrain from such a contest. As always, I wish the party well. Accept my best regards. Yours sincerely, Boakye Agyarko. Sky, this one is in your alley. What is? Oh, you are clapping.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%?
Yeah, I'm all false with him.
His lawyer did a good job.
Yeah, I think.
Or if he did it, he probably wrote it himself.
So, Bernard, I think what I see is that Mr. Agyarko may, at some point, seek a redress on this matter if he is properly advised. The reason being
that's if they proceed.
Yeah, that's right. The reason being that I do not think that it falls within the authority of the National Council or the National Executive Committee, or what's the name? Yeah, of the party
The elections
to do what they are doing. Because the constitution of the party, as I told you previously, is clear on the matter. That once there is this tie, there should be a way of dealing with it. Of course, regulations have been made to that effect. And then I also spoke to you about certainty of the law, the principle, one of the key principles of the rule of law. So you cannot be changing the rules as you go. Everybody went into that election knowing what will happen in the event of a tie. So they must have prepared for it.
including the elections committee themselves.
Exactly. And you must, as a party, have planned for it.
All right.
So when that tie eventually comes, what you do is fall on the rules as they are. You don't wake up one morning and say that, oh, although we had agreed previously that this should be the rule going forward, we think that it is not in the interest of the party to go by the rules that we had previously determined for ourselves. In my respectful view, I think that the NPP party chiefs who met and took the decision they took yesterday, with the greatest of respect to them, they have violated their own constitution because they do not have that authority to exercise, in my respectful view. But if you go to Article 13 of their own constitution, which would seem to be one of the things they relied on to do what they did, although it's not been publicly communicated to the best of my knowledge. The provision in Article 13 of their constitution, if you go to the very relevant one that I want to quote, it says that clause 2 there says voting in presidential primaries. It tells you the processes that you have to engage. But if you go to subclause 6, right, it says that the National Executive Committee, in consultation with the National Council, shall make rules and regulations governing the organization and conduct of elections of a presidential candidate. It would seem to me that they want to somehow, use this rule to create this special provision as to allow the party chiefs gathering in Accra to break their tie. But Bernard, these were not the people who took the decision that created the tie a week ago. The people who took the decision were party chiefs in the various constituencies and some other select groups. The party constitution tells us exactly the makeup of these people.
955.
955. They took a decision which resulted a tie. And in fact, The decision they took was not to do first, second, third, blah, blah, blah. That was not what they did. They shortlisted the number to 5. It was not a question of who won. Of course, we can all, in an elementary manner say that, Baumia won and blah, blah, blah. But the exercise they did
was a shortlisting exercise.
Yes, that's right, to restrict the number to 5. So if there is an issue with the number that they have come up with, you go back to the same people and ask them, well, you considered these people and returned the number. Which number does not satisfy the constitutional requirement? Are you persuaded to do something about it?
Okay.
So that people will go back, look at their options. There are 2 people involved, and decide that, okay, we think that, what's the name? Boakye Agyarko should go in, or Adainimu should go. You don't. As a party that says that you believe in the rule of law, sit at the party headquarters and create conveniently a rule that says that, let's forget about what we agreed previously. And in the interest of the party, as they argue, do their own thing.
But think is that not they are anyway, I mean, you could say they are just trying to be, they have technically maintained the runoff.
Yes, which is commendable.
They have maintained the date. The only thing they've sought to do is to use or interpret the Article 13 to give themselves power to reconstitute the Electoral College.
Which is wrong.
But, okay, it's interesting because if you look at the voting spread, it will seem as if the National Council, most of them would have voted at the headquarters. So maybe Agyarko's fear is that the group you've selected is just a tiny fraction of the overall group that was to vote. So it's not representative of the overall. So I don't know. So you think that if he went to court, he would be on all fours?
Yeah, you see, but again, I think he's also adopted the right processes. The law in Ghana, to the best of my understanding, is that you cannot run to court immediately when you have not exhausted the internal grievance procedures. So he has properly engaged the system, in my view. He's written to the chairman of the Presidential Elections Committee, who is the distinguished Professor Boakye. The expectation would be that he will respond to that letter. Based on what Professor Boakye says, if he's so advised, he may want to, because, I mean, the time between now and the 2nd is when? Today is what?
Today is Thursday. So they have one more day.
They have just a day, which is pretty tricky.
So that suggests that they probably haven't printed the ballot papers yet.
Most likely.
If they had done so, probably would have been for just the headquarters. So they should print ballot for all the 17. So you're saying the right thing to do is to go and print ballot for the 2 men for all 17 polling stations.
Yes.
And allow people to vote from 9 to 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Even if people don't turn up to vote, it doesn't matter.
You are satisfying the constitutional requirement.
So even if the voting turnout is low, we'll still have a winner.
Yes. Ultimately, it is.
How expensive would it be to do this? Because you have only 900 people. Printing a ballot for 900 people is not that much. Sending it to the regional capitals is not that much for a party of NPP size. Getting an EC official in each region is not that serious. Then you have 2 agents each. You have a few media people go there. So you start the process at 9 o'clock. 1 o'clock you finish, you count. And then you declare publicly that this is the number.
Let me just...
And then we finish. So the whole thing can take 4 hours, 5 hours.
Let me give you a typical analogy. So, in 2008, Mills didn't win the elections first round. Nanado didn't win first round, right? Yeah. So Nanado needed
49 point something.
Exactly. Imagine if Afarijan had said, look, this thing, I don't even think that the runoff is necessary. So let's go to the Volta region and allow only the people in the Volta region to decide who becomes the president.
What nonsense is that?
Imagine that.
So is that the same analogy we are pushing?
I mean, it may sound absurd,
but it's the same kind of.
It is almost the same thing because the people in Accra constituted themselves into some kind of authority.
I get you.
Rearrange the rules and are saying that the people who are to benefit from the constitutional arrangement originally agreed should subject themselves to it. The lawyers call something voluntas non fit injuria, which is if you submit to, willingly to something which injures you, you cannot go and now complain that, why did I get hurt out of this? So, for instance, you're playing football. If you're going playing football and somebody breaks your leg,
So once you have submitted voluntarily to the process, you must then let the process finish.
exactly. So the way it is now is that Boakye Agyarko doesn't want to submit himself to a process he's well aware
It's not fair
will
to him.
undermine his constitutional right as a member
What
of
do you
the
think
party.
about his choice of the word refrain instead of withdraw? I think the words are quite interesting. He says, let me just read it his conclusion is saying, I refuse to be part of such an act that seeks to unjustly truncate previously agreed upon processes and cannot be part of what is about to be done on Saturday, September 2. I cannot with a clear conscience make such an impermissible concession to such an errant decision. I therefore respectfully serve this notice to refrain from such a contest. What do you make of that? He didn't say he's withdrawn from the race.
Yeah, I think it's a technical word, which goes back to the principle that I just stated, volenti non fit injuria. He does not want to submit to a process which he knows fully well would undermine his
No,
constitutional
but I'm
right.
saying that they're using the word refrain versus withdraw.
Yeah, no, I'm going there.
Okay.
If he was withdrawing, he would have been withdrawing for, maybe he says that in the party interest, he doesn't think that, look, we should go and run this election around the country.
So he doesn't have a locus if he withdraws, because once you withdraw, you don't have a case.
Exactly. But in this particular case, he is saying that he has problems
So
with
it's a
property.
protest.
Yes, it's a protest. He is refraining from what he believes would undermine his constitutional
So
right.
he's not taking part in protest.
Yes.
Not withdrawing from. So it's like he's still interested in the NPP presidential slot,
Exactly.
but only insofar as it is
Legal.
done in the right way.
Constitutional.
This is a big test for Professor Michael Quay, but for a man of his size, age, and caliber, I'm sure he can navigate this thing very well.
You know, what I don't know is whether he submitted a legal opinion to the National Council and the National Executives based on which they took that. Because if you had him at the National Electoral Commission headquarters, he said that, look, the runoff will happen in line with the party's constitution.
He did say that.
Exactly. That around the country there will be a vote.
He did say that.
Now, why is it that in just a matter of days, some people think that they can reconstitute the national, the electoral college, as to serve whatever interest they hope to serve and claim that this is in the interest of the party? I do not think that, with the greatest respect, what they are doing is constitutional.
So
And
I think Agyarko actually quoted what you're saying in his letter. He said that in his letter to Mr. Okoye, he quoted what the chairman of the yes, is here paragraph here.
Election Commission.
The position of the runoff scheduled for September 2 was reaffirmed by the chairman of the elections committee during your address to the party after the first round of the special delegates elections, where you stated
Yes.
that candidates who voted in the first round will be the ones to vote in the second round, or people yeah. So he's using the law and also even what the man said. And what do you think NPP is going to do now?
Well,
Will they go ahead and say,
well, I think this is a matter for the national, not Professor Okoye. He chairs,
but he chairs the elections committee,
yes, which is a creation of
the national.
the national.
But who took this decision?
That's what we need to know.
They said the National
No,
Council.
let me
in
read the letter I read again. The original. Sorry, listen, just forgive us. The original
So it's the National Council that took the decision.
is the National Council, is the second highest decision-making body in the party.
Yeah,
Yes.
after Congress.
And they can't hold Congress basically between Saturday and today.
Yes.
Yes.
So National Council is the highest, but do they have that locus?
Yes.
So they have locus to take certain decisions. But the point I'm making is that while you have the authority to take the certain decisions, you cannot take decisions that are outside constitutional, remit. What they are doing undermines their constitution. It undermines, as I stated earlier, the principle of
The National Council is the one who took the decision.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they decided that they are the ones who will still vote.
Yeah.
So they now decided that they will vote.
Exactly. And you see, the problem with this is
I
also
get
that
Agyarko's letter
If
perhaps
like
would have
so
gone
if,
to
so
national,
if,
not
if like
Professor
so
Okoye.
if there was like a Congress, a major decision making body who then said council should vote, that's a different issue. But this is the council people now saying they are the ones going to vote. So they are the judges and they are also the players.
yes. And you know what is even sad about it? Some of the people in the race, right?
Are people of the National Council.
Yeah, that's why who will be voting? I mean, what? No. You see,
So can we say that to the extent that the election has not ended,
Yeah.
So you're saying you can't. What happened on Saturday, 26 September, is a process that has begun.
Yeah, it's a continuum.
It hasn't. So it doesn't end until November 4.
Yes.
So within that period, you can't change anything.
You can't vary the rules midstream.
Oh, then they should go and vote. They should go and vote across the country.
That is what they should do. You see, whether the people turn up to take part in the process is an entirely, it's up to them. So if you go and open the ballot boxes and people come, only 5% of them, or 10%, or 20%, or 50% of them come. As to once they meet the constitutional requirement, they have taken part in the process, and you declare the winner. But if you now constitute yourself into some group to be varying rules that have been previously agreed as the ground rules, it undermines the certainty of the law. And Bernard,
Sky,
let me make a quick point.
Yes.
That if they continue this way, Boakye Agyarko can sit down and say, look, I won't take part in this. They will go and then do the vote. And then whoever emerges subsequently as the leader of the party, he will now go to court and say, that person was not properly elected because in his view, the process is tainted by unconstitutionality. And therefore, they should annul the entirety of the result.
God.
And so everything else comes crumbling down because in his view, he legitimately ought to have been in the race.
Something just came to mind then. Mm-hmm. Remember when the 9 were asking for the elections to be held in the same place?
Yeah.
If they had been listened to, they could have avoided this because assuming the same outcome happened, that there was a tie. But if they had agreed in the procedure to all vote at one place, they could have just printed the ballot paper, put it there and say, we are all voting at the same place we voted.
Okay.
Do you understand? And now one they would have said, everybody can vote. Each 900 people can decide whether to come or vote or not. You can't force them. So the economy argument, you get my point. So the decision to ignore the advice of the 9 is coming back to haunt them, because if you had said we are all voting at headquarters, just come up and queue, we'll call you from regions to regions, come and vote. If they had done that, they could have just put one ballot box there and say, we are doing runoff. Into a person from the 900, within 20 minutes, those who will vote, then they finish.
Tell me, which army have you been using?
No, you see,
you're brilliant.
So it just means that sometimes, sometimes when we are making decisions, we should think deeply beyond the expediency.
Yeah.
Because it was presented as if the people who were against one group were trying to change. Because in fact, that argument, it's really funny. The argument they made was that in the previous election, we voted at different regions. So why do you want us to change? Do you get me? Why do you want us to change by letting everybody vote at the same place? If they had seen wisdom in what the 9 were saying, now you are saying you want to change the rules. Well, then those guys who said do a different thing now than you did in 2014. So you see the point. So it's something that, and the other point is that, right, Okoye's view, as he spoke to all of us in the media,
was clear.
Was that they should go and vote everywhere.
Yes.
So it appears they've either overruled him or they whipped him into line. I don't know. Because, of course, Okoye's body is a smaller body than the National Council. The body Okoye heads is the Elections Committee.
Yeah, but the view...
And elections committee is not as high as the National Council.
Which is true.
So the National Council is more strong. But whether the National Council is stronger or not, the Constitution is supreme.
Yeah. And you see, Okoye is not just a nobody. This is a distinguished barrister and solicitor, for that matter, of the Supreme Court of Ghana. A man who is a respected academic in the area of political science. He's authored so many books in that particular space, and he's taught for so many years. He understands the rules and the politics of Ghana. And again, he once led our parliament, both as a deputy speaker and then also as the Speaker of the Republic. So if he states a position publicly, if there is a variation to that position by a certain group, we must have persuasive reasons stated in written text to tell us that, this was the constitutional basis upon which we have decided to vary the views expressly expressed by the man publicly. That's why I said that, look, we want to know what view, if any, Professor Michael Okoye wrote in written text to them at the National Council to consider, based upon which they took the decision that they took. And maybe we should actually even be working the lines to call Professor Michael Okoye to speak
Tell us what he's going to say.
Yeah, that's right, because the constitutional basis for this decision, in my view, is doubtful.
So you are convinced by the Agyarko. But I just need to point out that whereas Agyarko wrote a full legal opinion on this, the council's release was just a letter communicating a decision.
Yeah.
So they did not state laws or rules explicitly. So what I'm saying, they didn't make a legal argument for us. They just wrote a letter telling us what they've decided. So maybe if they have a legal defense for this, they should put it out for us to also read. Then we can compare that. Do you get my logic?
That's right.
So that's one thing. So we're moving on right along. Couple of quick comments on this. And then we move to the other matters. Nathan, just quickly.
All right, Dan from Dan Suman says, nice discussion on the NPP runoff. Do you know that if the just ended special delegate election was done for the election of the general secretary, do you think the current scribe would have won? NPP must sit up. All right, this one says, listening to the issue on the NPP runoff voting, I'm just wondering why the National Council has not considered electronic voting for this. Why in this day and age are they still printing ballot papers and counting votes?
Yeah.
Doesn't the NPP subscribe to Dr. Baumia's digitalization agenda? Says they should set a better example.
Somebody's dropping.
People are finding stray bullets. you know. And of course, it's funny because an internal election, if the argument against these technological usage of, there's a lot of mistrust, and people have this fear about hacking and things. So it will take a while for Ghanaians to agree to a fully digital voting system. But within a small electoral college of 900 people, by a political party of the same members, that should not be such a big deal.
Some people are sending messages and saying that, some of the people who came to vote, they have returned to their bases in US, Canada, and co. Well, didn't they know that before they went into this arrangement?
Because even with that runoff, we are told that if there were less than 3 people, by the rules, they would have to find a way of adding 2. So if, for example, the top 3 got 100%, maybe 35, 20, whatever, it's 30.
Yeah.
The rules say they would have to do an election between those who got 0 to add 2 to the 3.
That's right.
So the point you were making is that the 5 is, it's like the 5 is a magic number. So that 5, that's the other thing. And for me, we should all learn from this. When you are coming up with don't make a long-term decision based on a short-term problem.
That's true.
That's what they did. I mean, you have a major issue of choosing your flag bearer, and because you were criticized for parading 17 people, you go and make a very
Drastic.
I want a word, grotesque
It's
arrangement
just grotesque.
that is giving you problems.
Yeah.
I think their next Congress, they should get some lawyer to write a position paper on the rules going forward, so they all just align. Because this is not even, we've been wasting our time. We should be discussing important national issues.